And we are live.
And welcome to episode 64 of TLC, Tech Learn Coffee. I am your host, Lisa Nowakowski, a fifth grade teacher in South Monterey County here in California.
And I'm Nancy Mini-Coatsey, an instructional tech coach in Northwest LA County.
And just a reminder, we have a 15-minute format because ain't nobody got more time than that.
No, they don't. And tonight's coffee fact, the very first live webcam showed a coffee pot. It was next door to a lab at the University of Cambridge, and the researchers didn't want to get up and go get coffee only to find that the pot was empty. So they set up a camera so they could see if there was coffee in the pot or not. And when the World Wide Web was invented, they connected their coffee pot camera to the web, and people could view it from all over the world until it went offline in 2001.
I'm sorry, that is kind of brilliant.
Right? I know. I was just thinking we should do that. Anyway, so tonight's guests are Angela Barnett and Kristin Oropeza from Tech Tribe EDU, and they are going to be talking to us about a really interesting subject that we have not had before on our podcast, and that is what teachers really need to know about and how to read the 3 dimensions of the next generation science standards, also known as NGSS. So, welcome, Angela and Kristin, and tell us a little bit about yourselves, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I'm Angela Barnett. I teach 3rd grade. I'm also our site's ELA, ELD site tech, and site lead. And I was going to say technology site lead. I mix those two together. And I used to work with Kristin up till last year.
And I'm Kristin Oropeza. I'm currently a technology TOSA for a very small district here in LA County. In my 8th year of teaching, have taught special ed for the last 8 years, a little bit more than that. And so very excited to be joining you guys tonight.
Well, we are thrilled to have you and want to ask, so NGSS, it's a big thing. Teachers might find it overwhelming. What is it that they really need to know?
So unlike our former California science standards, the next gen science standards really pushes educators to dive deeper into really teaching students to understand scientific knowledge and skills rather than just the memorization of facts. There are fewer standards this time than we had previously, but teachers are going to have to really hone in on those very specific skills. The new standards also really stress critical thinking skills and encourages our students to critically evaluate the information they find. What I like about the standards, they were written by teachers for teachers, which I think brings some incredible buy-in from the educators who are being asked to implement the standards in the classroom. Educators want to know that the people behind, these big changes and movements in the edusphere, right, have their students' best interest in mind. And I know that I can rest a little easier knowing fellow teachers, finally had a say in the expectations that we are setting for our students.
Well, that's really interesting. I didn't know that they were written by teachers for teachers. I mean, usually you assume that teachers have some input, but that's good. So I think all teachers feel more comfortable when they know that teachers wrote it with an understanding of the students that are in the classroom.
Right. Not just somebody sitting up at a big chair, right?
Exactly. Teachers should be doing this. So let me ask you, what are the big ideas in the new standards?
So the next generation standards really focuses on what they call a 3-dimensional learning experience for the kiddos. And according, to the writers of these standards, are supposed to be a vision of what it means to be proficient in science. They're meant to provide students with a more well-rounded, that 3-dimensional kind of course of study of science. In a science classroom.
Sorry, you were breaking up for a minute. So you said well-rounded.
three-dimensional course of study in the science classroom, or really any classroom, because these standards are going to be integrated with language arts, with math, our history and social science subject matter. And then the 3 dimensions, if we're looking at the standards, there's documents on the Next Gen Science website. We have the 3 dimensions, the blue, which is our science and engineering practices. We have the orange, which are those disciplinary core ideas. And then the green, which are the cross-cutting concepts.
Yeah, so as Kristin was kind of showing, I think something that's really good about these standards, the color coding, I guess. So the 3 together really support the performance expectations, which are now what the teachers are going to be assessing on. And so because the next generation standards are inquiry-based, you can design an essential question to help guide your unit or lesson. So for example, like for 3rd grade, the standard is like make a claim about the impacts of a weather-related hazard. So what you can do is create an essential question, which is, how can the impact of weather-related hazards be reduced? And so this is where Kristin and I have kind of put together or connected the 5E lesson model to help create these units and make them more well-rounded. So it includes engagement, exploration, explanation, extensions, and evaluations. And then Kristin also mentioned the 4 Cs. So the 4 Cs are really involved too. So the idea is to provide students with more hands-on activities, whether it's diagramming, building something, or experimenting. And this will also help the students gain the skills they need for those California science tests 5th and 8th graders will have to take, and also the high school students. And then one very important thing that I think everybody should realize or know is that they're also aligned with the ELA and Math Common Core standards. So you'll see actually reading standards, writing standards, and math standards right underneath those 3 dimensions that are listed.
Oh, I did not know that. That's very interesting. So let me ask you, when you were talking about the 5E lesson model, and you said you had sample lessons, is there somewhere that our listeners can go to look at those? Are those resources in the notes that you gave us, or can we add them?
So we will add, so we got to connect with Nancy at San Diego Q, and our presentation was using a hyperdocs with the 5E lesson model, which we are going to be sharing on our blog. We're going to share, so we're going to take a page out of your book, Nancy, and we're going to add our presentations to our blog like you did. We really like that idea of sharing. And then also to, because they're hyperdocs, we really look towards the hyperdoc girls, and they have samples also and templates on their website as well.
Oh, great. Okay. And their blog, Angela and Kristin's blog, is going to be linked in our show notes, so you'll be able to have access to that. So you guys were talking about how the standards were color-coded, and you could tell different, the different practices apart from the color. So how do we read those? I mean, what does it mean when you said blue was science and engineering practices?
Okay, so we have the science and engineering practices, which are located in blue, and this is for all grade levels. So the way they developed or designed the lesson, it looks the same across all grade levels. So blue is science and engineering practices. They provide specific strategies students should acquire, such as planning, carrying out investigations, creating models. And this kind of reminds me of the scientific method that I know I was taught in elementary school, that I know teachers still use. And it also incorporates in asking questions, defining those problems. And then in green, we have the cross-cutting concepts. So this is where we were saying that they align with the Common Core standards. So kind of when I was going to school to get my credential, we worked on multidisciplinary units and connecting subjects. So you have your math standards, your reading standards, your writing standards, and you'll see things like patterns in math or cause and effect in reading. And these really connect to like STEM and STEAM. So then we have our orange, which are the disciplinary core ideas, which would be like our old standards. So we have our physical science, our earth science, life science. So they separated it into 3 dimensions, and then it basically just kind of connects it all together into like a culminating unit.
Well, that sounds great. It seems like they're really well organized. So
once you know how to read it,
yeah, right. I mean, it's incredible because it is a skill to learn, how to break it down when we're looking at a standard and to break it apart and really deconstruct it and analyze it. So the NGSS are set up a little bit differently than what we're used to looking at, right? And so it's really good to have that guideline, that framework, so that we can understand. So this has been great, but it's really short. So what if teachers want to learn more? And of course they should, because they're supposed to be implementing these standards in their classrooms. So let's say that now I know what I'm doing, and so I want to go ahead and learn more. What resources are available to me?
So definitely, I mean, teachers should be checking out the nextgenscience.org website. That's the website that has all the PDFs of all the grade level science standards. It's probably the starting place if you're just getting into learning the standards, or just if your district hasn't provided like a physical copy for you, it's probably where you want to go to get one. The National Science Teachers Association website, also has some great lesson plans by grade level and science discipline that address these new standards, which I think are great. Any place where I can get a lesson that I'm not taking time to sit down and make myself is always a good idea. And then
I agree. So let me ask you, so they have, I just want to be sure I understand, they have free lesson plans that I can just go and download for my content, for my grade level, and I can just take it and go?
They do.
That is awesome.
They do. And then I like, and I check out the California Classroom Science blog, which is run by our California Science Teachers Association. It's a great resource. It's easy to read, to see what other districts and other classrooms across our state are doing in regards to not only the adoption, but the implementation and the rollout of these standards. I love that the pieces are written. Many of the pieces are written by individuals who work in the classroom. They're not written, from the administrative angle. So it definitely helps teachers. And then, of course, I can't say enough about Twitter. At NGSS Chat and at NGSS Phenomena are great accounts to follow, especially the Phenomena. They share some great, really curated pieces that any teacher could use in their classroom. That's a great resource.
Oh, that is really good to know. So I think that's our time. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else that we want to, anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I just think one of the things that we mentioned was HyperDocs creating a lesson. So it's that technology piece now. With NGSS, it actually is embedded in the standards, as well as speaking and listening. So I know, another shout out, but we use Flipgrid, and just that it meets those speaking and listening standards. We're also trying to assess, which are very difficult sometimes. And those are videos that you can embed also into your lessons as well.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Thank you so much. So thank you again for being on, for coming on short notice. And listeners, thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a comment to let us know. Tonight's comment question is, what science content are you excited about teaching? Also, we'd like to invite you to join us on Monday, November 19th, when our guest will be Gary Garcia. He's joining us all the way from the Philippines to talk about timely and meaningful feedback.
And please don't forget to subscribe to learn, to hear more about easy ways for you to innovate in your classroom. If you like the show, and of course you did, please feel free to rate us on iTunes. It helps other people to find our podcast, and leave a review for us. And remember, we're always looking for guests to share great things that they do in their classrooms. So if you know someone who fits the bill, or if you're somebody who is excited about what you're doing and want to share, please visit tlc.ninja and complete the contact form to let us know. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.